Hey, welcome to day 3 of the Mind Hacking Happiness 45-day Mind Mastery 101 course. I am your instructor, Sean Webb. I'm wearing one of my favorite shirts today. If you can see it, it's a brain with the different brain regions kind of outlined and pointed to on my t-shirt. My son loves that I wear this shirt. I got it from the Fernbank Museum in Atlanta, which we used to be a supporter of. Hey, to my Atlanta peeps, good to see you. How you been? Okay. Day 3, we're going to dive into a little bit deeper dive about meta-awareness, what we introduced yesterday as a concept, and why it's so important that we need to understand what it is, and why it's so important that we need to be able to enter meta-awareness at will, because there's a lot of science associated with this that you need to understand as we move forward. So let's talk about yesterday's homework. I asked you to meditate for 10 minutes, and I hope you did, because if you're not actually doing these exercises, you're not actually going to be changing the brain patterns that are going to be beneficial for you, that will allow you to change how your mind works. So you got to do this stuff. If you didn't meditate, stop this video now and meditate for 10 minutes before you come back to this video. That's how serious this is, because if you actually don't do the work, you're not going to get the benefit of changing the patterns in your mind and being able to take control of your mind. That's part of this deal. So why did we meditate for 10 minutes yesterday, though? Okay, the answer to that question is simple. The basics of meditation are that, and if I think you did probably the breathing meditation is most commonly what the most novice meditators start with, is just focusing on your breath and then watching your mind interrupt itself to try to have you bring up thoughts or memories or sensations or this or that or whatever. But basically, you focused on your breathing, and then you noticed all the interruptions that your mind created for you, right? Well, that's what meditation is. Meditation is proactively focusing your attention in some way, and usually we do it on our breath, or if we're doing it in walking meditation, we focus on the feeling of what it means to go, or how it feels to go from one foot to the next foot as we walk very slowly, and what it is to be in the environment around us, and we notice the sounds and all this other stuff. But basically, we're focusing our attention on one certain thing, right, or set of things. And then we watch our mind as it tries to interrupt us. So what we're doing is we're taking our mind, turning it back on itself. We're trying to focus its attention, yet we're noticing what the rest of our mind is doing. Well, if you remember from yesterday, basically we explained that meta-awareness was that same exact thing, that same thing where you actually saw that you were in your daydream and you notice what your mind was doing. Meta-awareness is that space in your mind where the mind looks back on what the mind is doing and gives us the ability to take control of our mind. And in meditation, we have the ability to take control of our mind, right? In that 10 minutes of meditation, when our mind tries to interrupt us with that distracting thought or whatever, we're able to understand that as a distracting thought. Even if we forget about it for a second, we're off down the road of following that thought pattern for a few minutes until the alarm reminds us we're supposed to be meditating. Well, that moment that we realize that we're distracted is that moment of meta-awareness. It's that moment of being able to take control of our mind, being in the control room of our mind, and being able to redirect and say, okay, I'm going to do one more full breath at the end of this meditation when my alarm went off, to focus my mind on my breath only, and we take control of our mind at that moment. Well, that's exactly what meditation is. That is meta-awareness. It's a discipline of meta-awareness, and that's what meditation was designed to do, is put us into that space of meta-awareness. Now, why is this important from a scientific perspective? Aha! Now we're getting into the meat of the subject. Well, when it comes to our brain activity, there are two major modes that are of networks that activate during most of our day. And there are a few others, but we're going to talk about these next two so that you understand why it's so important that we understand what meta-awareness is and be able to enter meta-awareness at will, okay? The first is the default mode network. The default mode network is exactly the way it sounds. It is the activity that your brain defaults back to when you're not doing anything else. It is internal non-task activity. It is associated with what we're going to talk about in the future called self, but basically it's all the ego-related thoughts, the thoughts about you, your internal narrative, your internal story, your self-referencing, your thoughts about this or that happened during the day, thoughts about past or future, passive rest, fires up the default mode network, and it's basically where your mind is just wandering. Now, the thing about a wandering mind is that science is now proving that a wandering mind is a mind that is 20% less happy. If you look over there on the right, it is the default mode network that is associated with feelings of depression, anxiety, chronic pain, and can even lead to Alzheimer's. It's directly correlated with negative outcomes of the brain, period, allowing your default mode network to fire and mind wander aimlessly. It reduces the amount of happiness that you experience throughout the day. And when the DMN, the default mode network, is downregulated, the brain becomes supercharged, and the brain becomes a positive mix of neurotransmitters and a bunch of positive activity. And that's because we're firing the other mode that we're going to talk about, which is the task mode network. Now, the task mode is firing when you're actually doing something. When you're focused on an activity, or you're using your working memory, or you're actually doing something, or like, you're doing an activity at work, or you're focused on a crossword puzzle, or you're focused on some type of activity, then that's when your task mode network is firing. And that is when you're 20% more happy, as measured by scientific studies. And it's really good for your health. And we'll talk about some of the health benefits as we move forward. But when you're firing the task mode network, your cortisol is decreased, your heart rate is decreased, your anxiety levels are decreased, your happiness levels increase, your overall well-being is increased. When you're actually focused on doing something with your mind, then there's a whole bunch of positive stuff that occurs in your body and occurs in your brain and helps supercharge your brain. Now, ironically, or not ironically, but this is what we're doing when we engage in meditation, because meditation fires the task mode network. Meditation is a focused activity that takes you from your default mode network and mind wandering state into a state where your mind is actually doing something. You are taking control of your mind and directing its focus to focus on your breath, or if you're doing a walking meditation, you're focused on shifting your weight from one foot to the other, or some other type of like mantra meditation or whatever it is. Every discipline of meditation is taking your mind and focusing it on one activity and engaging the task mode network. Now, other things that fire the task mode network, besides work and besides meditation, are things like Tai Chi. Any focused activity that you're doing will fire your task mode network. Journaling, thinking about, writing about a certain topic will fire your task mode network. And over there on the right, coming soon, is the equation of emotion review. And we'll talk about that in just a second to give you a basic understanding of what that is. But I want you to take note of the very bottom bullet down there. Relaxing on vacation does not turn down your default mode network and does not fire the task mode network. So just chilling on the beach or chilling on the couch and watching TV or whatever, that's actually counterproductive to bettering your mind, because that's mind wandering activity. It's not a focused activity of being able to take your mind and do something specific with it. Now, I talked about the equation of emotion review a second ago, so let me just give you a preview of what that's going to be. Basically, all of your mind's activity is based on two components that it constantly compares with each other. And every one of your emotional reactions, every one of your thoughts, every one of your brain's reactions is going to be based on those two components that your mind weighs against each other. Now, learning what these are in the future is going to allow you to understand your mind to a higher level. But the other cool thing is that there's a physiological response associated with understanding your mind and understanding what your mind does. And that goes back to an entire group of studies called the Name It, Tame It studies. So there's this guy named Matt Lieberman at UCLA. And Matt found out, he took two groups of folks, and in one group he said, okay, we're going to lay you in an fMRI, we're going to show you these emotionally charged images of situations or people having an emotional response or whatever, and we just want to watch your brain as you do it. And then this second group, he said, okay, we're going to lay you in the fMRI machine, and we're going to show you these same pictures that we showed the other people, but we want you to put some type of understanding to it. We want you to name it. We want you to name the situation or name the emotion in play so that we can watch the difference between the two. So what happened was they got the baseline from these guys, control group, and over here, their brains, you know, what happens is when the group one starts to look at the emotions, their brains start to have a reaction similar to what they're seeing. Like if it's a turbulent situation, their brain starts to have an emotional reaction associated with that. In group two, their brains also had the emotional reaction and the turbulent response to the situation that they're looking at. But putting a cognitive understanding to that, putting a name to the emotion in play, turned that reaction off almost immediately from a physiological position in the mind. So the brain actually turned that reaction off, and they stopped having that feeling of anxiety or that feeling of fear or anger or sadness or whatever it was they were experiencing. It turned the physiological response of the brain off when they put that cognitive understanding to the mind's process. That's huge. That's an amazing tool to be able to use that discipline, that capability, that process to physically turn off the problem sensing area of your brain that's creating the issue in the first place. That's amazing. It's going to be an amazing tool for you moving forward. Okay. I'm going to teach you how to do that in the upcoming weeks. It's really easy to do. It's just, you got to learn it. No one's ever taught it to you before. Not a big deal. Now, the cool thing about that is down on the bottom there, neuroplasticity. The more you do this stuff over time, the easier it's going to get, the faster you're going to be able to do it, the more automatic that it's going to get. And so, yes, turning down your mind's negative bullshit will become more automatic over time as you learn these methods of getting out of your default mode network into your task mode network and utilizing your meta-awareness, the control room of your mind. Now, the reduction of the default mode network, turning down your default mode network, and increasing of your emotional intelligence has also been shown in a bunch of studies that have been, you know, peer-reviewed and published, that other benefits can also occur in your brain that you can't help but to have happen, such as increases in IQ, increases in self-awareness, increases in self-regulation, increase in your verbal and spatial intelligence, increases in your reasoning abilities, in your general cognitive functioning, in your happiness. You have better sense of control, better empathy, better self-efficacy, and higher standardized test scores. Over on the right side, you reduce and eliminate depression. You reduce your anxiety. You reduce your major depressive disorder, substance abuse disorder, negative community functioning. All the bad stuff goes down, all the good stuff goes up when you're engaged in activities that will increase your emotional intelligence and decrease your default mode network activity. In addition, at work, it's an amazing tool if you're a professional. It enhances employer-employee relations, it increases employee productivity to 20% bump. Attention at work goes up, job satisfaction goes up, cognitive functioning at work goes up, employee self-efficacy goes up. You'll have a better workforce if you're a manager or a business owner or executive. On the right-hand side, 70% reduction in absenteeism over 3 years and up to 94% decrease in turnover, decreased burnout. You want to talk about an expensive check to write? Training your employees when someone leaves and you have to hire and you have to all the expenses of getting them new computers and yada, yada, yada. You want to reduce that if you're a business owner, get them emotional intelligence training. You know, we'll set you up, no problem, get that rolling for you. Reduction of default mode network at school. A bunch of awesome things happen at schools and students that reduce their default mode network activity and increase their emotional intelligence. Higher standardized test scores, increased attention, higher focus, better social skills, higher leadership scoring as scored by their peers and teachers. Fewer bullying issues, reduced hyperactivity, reduced anxiety, reduced depression, fewer conduct problems, fewer learning problems. This is amazing because it supercharges your brain. How can you not experience a benefit when your brain is actually getting better because of what you're doing with your brain? In addition, increased mindfulness benefits. Studies have shown you have increased memory, increased working memory, boosted immune systems, increased DNA telomeres. Here, I want to talk to you about this one. We're going to discuss this a little later in the upcoming weeks as well. But one of the things that this program is going to help you do is increase the length of your telomeres. And you're like, what are telomeres? I've never heard of those things. Okay, so telomeres are the protective proteins on the end caps of your DNA. So think about them as the plastic protective cap on the end of your shoelace that allows it not to fray and not become a shoelace anymore. Well, telomeres are basically the same thing for DNA. Now, as you get older and your cells replicate, the DNA gets replicated, but the telomeres start to get shorter over time because it's designed to basically fray off at the end so that your DNA doesn't fray off at the end. Well, pretty soon you lose your telomeres and your DNA starts to fray off at the end when your cells replicate, and that's when you die. Stanford University has proven that it's a direct correlation. The length of your telomeres is a direct correlation with the length of your life. Now, the cool thing is the peer-reviewed studies have shown that the activities you're going to learn in this course and the disciplines you're going to learn in this course and the activities that you're going to have benefit from in this course can potentially lengthen your telomeres and thus lengthen your life. Not even joking. How cool is that? So, yeah, there's a bunch of good stuff on the left that it helps your brain, a bunch of good stuff or bad stuff on the right that it decreases, increasing your mindfulness and the things that we're going to do with the disciplines associated with this program reduces mind wandering, reduces chronic pain, reduces depression, anxiety, cortisol, your stress hormones, reduces negative mood states, OCD, PTSD, addiction and substance abuses. All that stuff, all the bad stuff goes down, all the good stuff goes up. Now, another benefit, by the way, is being able to turn down like the negative stuff that we talked about with the name attainment that we're going to learn here in the next couple of weeks for you to be able to enter meta-awareness at will. When your limbic system is firing, which is the system of the brain that's down in here, you can't quite see it on the monitor, but your limbic system fires, that shuts off your prefrontal cortex, so you lose 10 to 20 IQ points associated with your intelligence. So at the point that you're dealing with stresses at work and your anxiety is high over something, your thinking brain is firing less, which ironically keeps you in the stress situation because you can't figure a way out of your situation. You're going to learn how to get over that and get through that by not losing that 10 to 20 IQ points, being able to shut down the negative reactions of your brain, and that gets more plastic over time. How cool is that? So yeah, you need to learn to turn down your negative bullshit in your brain because there are multiple reasons that you don't need it. Now, plasticity over time, the longer you do this, the longer you learn how to enter meta-awareness at will, the longer you learn how to turn off your default mode network and enter your task mode network, creates a plastic effect over time. And all of those slides that we went through with the positive increases in the good stuff and the reductions of the negative stuff, that becomes plastic over time, and that becomes more automatic over time. They become more long-lasting over time. So your brain becomes supercharged over time and doesn't change back, which is really, really cool. You supercharge your brain, you supercharge your mind in all these ways, and it becomes easier and more automatic over time the longer you do it. It's really cool. So you go from this, being thrown from the horse of your mind, to being the master of your mind, being able to ride 4 horses and standing up on the saddles and be the showman of your mind. You go from this, being punched in the face by your mind, to being this, Ali, standing over your mind as it lays on the canvas because you've conquered it. You go from this, the guy who's pretending to be the Master Jedi, to this, the guy who really is the Master Jedi. So today, we're going to have some homework that's going to go into one of the other disciplines that we can use to help understand our multiple levels of consciousness that exist within our mind and be able to communicate with those more efficiently. And that is the homework of quick journaling. And quick journaling is exactly what it sounds like. It's journaling about a very specific topic, but it's, you do it quick. We're going to do it for 5 minutes just to start out. So we'll set a timer for 5 minutes, and we'll pick a topic, and we'll run with it, and you can write for 5 minutes. And if you want to do another 5 minutes beyond that, if you're not, if you kind of like it and just going on it, that's okay. We'll talk about the science of this tomorrow. You'll be very impressed by the science of quick journaling. But basically, from a layman's perspective, quick journaling is like cleaning out the hard drive of your mind. It's listening to the other layers of your consciousness, because what you're going to do is just like we did yesterday when I told you to think of a pink elephant and purple polka dots, and you said, okay, You had that intention, and then you passed it down to another level of consciousness down here. They put that picture together and then handed it back up to you, and you just saw the pink elephant with purple polka dots. We're going to do the same thing today. We're going to give you a prompt. You're going to say, okay, I want to write about this. And so here's the prompt, and then boom, your levels of subconscious are going to start kicking things up to you to write, and you're just going to write whatever comes out. That's what quick journaling is all about, okay? So you listen to the other layers of your consciousness, and we'll talk about the science of what's happening in your mind tomorrow, but here's how you do it. You get a piece of paper and a pen, because it's better to do it with a physical activity of your hand actually moving rather than typing it into an electronic device. But just don't stop writing. Start writing with one of the prompts, and you'll have 3 prompts here in a second. Grab a prompt and just start writing, and don't stop. If you have nothing to say, say I have nothing to say, or I have nothing more to write. I have nothing more to write until something else comes up, or you can pick another prompt and start again with another prompt. You won't run out of things to say in 5 minutes, though. Sometimes when you're journaling for 20 minutes, maybe you can switch prompts or whatever, but it's good to just go and let it go, and you won't run out of things to say in less than 5 minutes. So won't be a big thing. So don't worry, you won't be sharing any of this stuff. Just keep writing whatever weird thing that comes out and put it down onto the piece of paper. You're listening to those levels of subconscious, and you're getting into better communication with them. Now, here are your prompts. The first prompt you can use, if you like, is, I am at my best when. And then you just are off and writing. Or, what I really love is, boom, and then you're off and writing. Or, what empowers me is, boom, and then you're off and writing. And you just keep writing, and if you stop and run out of it, then you start again with that same prompt or a different prompt. What empowers me is blah, 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 and then maybe that thought is done, and then you say, okay, what empowers me is something else. And then you're off and writing with whatever is coming from the levels of subconscious that are coming from your mind. Now, this is changing what your mind is normally doing, so you got to do this activity. I'm only setting a 5-minute minimum on this. You can do 10 max if you like. If you're just on a roll, you can keep going, but stop. 10 minutes is your max. If you want to set a 10-minute timer and go, as soon as that dinger goes off, just stop what you're doing and rest, okay? We don't want to overdo it. I don't want the homework to be overbearing or too much. And we're going to have homework, a little bit of homework every day. So don't overdo it. Don't burn yourself out. Okay. Hope this message finds you well. We are at the end of day 3. Can't wait to see you on day 4. Talk to you soon.